Finally today, I have succumbed to the pressure, to the peer pressure from your comments, from discussions that I've had not only with my viewers, but also friends, other Espresso aficionados about the Decent DE1. And I've been pretty resistant on the Decent for quite a few reasons that I'll talk about a bit later in this video. But right now, what I want to do is share the unboxing and first setup experience with all of you. So we're going to pull it out of the box and see what we've got in this case. One thing that's immediately different about the Decent, at least in terms of many of the machines that I receive, is it didn't show up on a freight. It didn't show up on a pallet. It showed up with just UPS or FedEx, which at first gave me a little bit of pause because I've seen UPS and FedEx roll machines down my front steps. But actually, this one seems like it's in a pretty solid case, and the case itself feels like it's a nice piece. Nothing really feels very cheap on it, although it does flex a little when I lift it up, but the machine itself is about 20 some odd pounds and the case is only 7. Now that we have it on the counter, you can get a closer look at the case itself, which has a nice sort of texture to it. It feels like high impact plastic. And the zipper itself also is very chunky, which is a nice thing to have because I'm tired of fighting little chintzy zippers to try and get them open. This one doesn't seem like there was any corners cut. Now, popping open the case itself, it looks like everything made the trip from Hong Kong just fine. And the first thing to come out is going to be the drip tray. Now, among many of the unique things you'll find about the Decent itself is they utilize a lot of interesting materials, at least in terms of things that are in contact with water. So the drip tray is also a ceramic piece. We'll see more ceramic down the line as well, but it's a unique sort of texture and feel. I actually like it and prefer it to plastic or metal, which tend to really get very sticky and collect a lot of grinds and are somewhat difficult to clean. This one is actually very easy. And also the drip tray grate is just a small metal grate that sits right on top of the ceramic tray and just sits right on the rails of the machine. But we'll get more into that a bit later. The next piece coming out is actually the water tank itself, which smartly has this little inlet put inside of it to actually also carry the wheels for the rolling case, but also make sure that the unit itself is pretty well filled out and insulated during travel. So I think that that's just a smart way to actually transport the wheels, but also the ceramic water tank, which, you know, obviously isn't fragile, but also isn't nearly as robust or able to take hits like something maybe made of metal or plastic. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this is another piece of the no plastic pathway for water when brewing on the Decent. So this is the tray that you're going to put your water in. It's going to go underneath the machine. And we'll get into how that actually works a little bit later in the video. But as you can see, it's again a nice solid piece, but the inside is glazed and much easier to clean out as well when it comes to refilling and making sure things are clean inside. Next up, we have the all-important power cable. Now, the machine that I ordered is the Decent DE1XL 110 volt because I'm not going to mess with trying to put a 220 volt machine or plug in my studio. And with that power cable also comes a plastic zippered envelope. Not really sure if that's to carry the cable in later down the road or just for funsies, but it's a cool little goodie bag to have, I guess. Next up is probably the most recognizable piece of the Decent, and that's the classic Android tablet that goes and sits on top that shows you all your little fun graphics and things like that. So seems like a nice piece. I don't really use a lot of Android stuff, but sure. And of course, the cable that goes along with the Android that connects to the machine. And of course, no proper carrying case is complete without the addition of some tools, but hopefully I won't need to be using these anytime soon. And finally, let's do the main piece of the puzzle. This is the machine itself, which actually the case sits nice and snug, but it's not so tight that it takes the whole case with it. And honestly, I'm probably going to say this many times throughout this video, but I'm always shocked about how light that machine actually is. But now that the machine's out, let's get this case off the counter, the machine on it, and continue the process of unpacking and setting the whole thing up. All right, now let's take a quick look at what's inside this little case underneath. So as it slides out and you open it up, you'll notice that inside it's got the portafilter, a blind basket for back flushing, and the additional handle you're gonna need for locking in your portafilter. And they're all nicely wrapped to make sure they don't get any damage in travel, on top of also being inside this foam case. So I just can't imagine any of these things being damaged on arrival. Now, in my opinion, this is when the unboxing experience actually is more fun and satisfying, and that's actually removing all the factory tape off the machine itself. So as you can see, I didn't opt for any particular finish. I actually went with the clear plastic because I like the idea of being able to see all the working components inside the machine, as well as it could help me in the long run making videos where I don't have to take the case off all the time. There's really nothing more satisfying than that. Anyway, let's unwrap all the little bits and pieces and get them installed in the machine so we can get this thing fired up. First up, we've got the additional handle that goes inside this little screw area inside the group head itself. Now, if you're not familiar with the Decent, because it is so light, you have to actually grab onto this handle to lock the portafilter in strong enough to make sure it's sealed. But speaking of portafilters, let's move on to that. As you can see, the Decent comes stock with a bottomless portafilter, which for me and for what I do, it actually is really nice. I actually prefer it now that I've using so many different tools and tests and things. It's just a nice thing to have, but honestly, there is still a use case for spouts. But anyway, also the screen that comes stock is an IMS screen, the type of IMS screen I normally use, so no complaints there. And of course, the steam wand is for some reason still wrapped, so I'm just gonna pull off the plastic on that. Any day now. We're almost there. And we got it. Another interesting or unique design and workflow part of the Decent itself is the fact that there's a small lever on the back that lifts up and down the water inlet that allows you to put the water tank in and out of the machine. But since we're now adding water to the Decent, now's a great time to talk about this video's sponsor, because when it comes to brewing quality coffee, the importance of quality water cannot be overstated. I mean, purely by the numbers, water makes up to 98% of what's in your cup, and it's absolutely vital to the long-term reliability of your equipment. Personally, after months of testing and trials, I trust third wave water formulas in every machine, owned or loaned. Not only is it formulated to not produce scale or cause corrosion in your equipment, but there's an option for every pallet. Third wave water offers a wide variety of mineral blends, specifically designed to get the most out of your favorite roast level or brew type. So take control of one of the most important variables for brewing quality coffee and head over to thirdwavewater.com/Sprometheus or use code Sprometheus at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. Thanks to Third Wave Water for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. All right, with a full tank now, we're going to slip this underneath the machine itself, drop the inlet and water sensor back down, and we're going to place the drip tray. All right, we are in the home stretch. We're moving on to electronics. So first thing, we're going to snap our tablet into place, and it has a nice satisfying click as it moves into its little holder. Also, we're gonna remove the plastic lining, and we're gonna get this whole thing plugged in. So behind the machine, after I've already removed the back panel, which is just a small magnetic piece, I actually can thread the power cable up through behind the frame in between and plug it into the back of the machine, and also engage the power button. And after the machine clicks on and sings the song of its people, all right, with all that out of the way, we can now replace and realign the magnetic back panel on the machine and then move into setting up the actual tablet. First thing you're gonna need to do is plug it in, and actually the USB port and the port onto the tablet itself are in very convenient positions, so that just takes a quick second. And then from there, we're just going to power on the tablet and we are ready to go. And finally, before we get into any brewing or digging deeper into the Decent and the tablet itself, I want to make sure things are warming up and it's flowing freely. Well, as we can see, we have a fully functioning espresso machine, so the Decent has officially landed on the bar. All right, Now that we're set up, filled up, and warmed up, let's talk first impressions. And I think first things first, elephant in the room, at least for those of you who have watched my videos for some time or read comment sections on video reviews, and when the Decent gets brought up, I'm pretty vocal about my feelings on the Decent. And to be honest, those opinions at this point at least haven't changed. I mean, it was never about the performance because, as many of us already know, it's a very broadly capable machine. Instead, my issues were and still are kind of focused around the hands-on user experience. I mean, it's just so light and small and lacks a lot of the heft and feel of a more classic espresso machine design. I mean, when you have a second handle to hold onto to lock a portafilter in place, that's a bit of a clue. On top of that, the act of using it feels somewhat disconnected. I mean, even the buttons don't even click. And for me, and I think for a lot of folks who are in this espresso enthusiast circle, I think a lot of us have come to really love the process almost as much as we love the product itself. But of course, I've still got the grinder, the puck prep, and the main benefit of the Decent's unique tech, its seemingly endless profile design. And up until this point, I've only just dabbled a bit in its pre-installed and standard presets, as well as made one of my own. But the jury is still out on if the Decent can really scratch that process itch. But even just after a few hours at the helm of the Decent, I can't help but feel like there's going to be a bit longer of a learning curve than there are with many other machines that have landed on my bar. Really, the best way I can describe it is it's like learning how to do something you already know how to do, but just tweaked, just enough to make it feel different. It's like learning how to drive on the other side of the road in another country. I mean, of course, I already know and understand the variables in making espresso, like pressure and flow, but in most espresso machines, they're kind of theories or abstract in a way. So with the Decent, they're in your face. I mean, they're literally in your face. You've got a iPad right on top that's showing you graphs and lines and flow rates and numbers, and you're trying to manage your grind size to hit those lines and numbers and flow rates, and it's just adding a whole new aspect to the espresso brewing process. And I have to say, at least at this point, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship. But the fact is, it's here. I bought it. So I'm going to put the time in, and you're going to see a lot more of it, at least for a while. In terms of content, I of course got a review planned, but also maybe a comparison, some taste tests, and a lot more. So as I wrap this one up, it's time as always to pass the conversation on to you. What are your thoughts on the Decent, as it seems to be somewhat of a divisive machine among espresso enthusiasts? And of course, what sort of content do you want to see with the Decent on this channel in the coming months? Drop your answers to those questions and any others you may have in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Check out my Instagram @Sprometheus for content throughout the week. Help support the channel by considering becoming a member for early content access. And as always, stay caffeinated. Pony Boy.